This was on the list of things that I had to cover that I just completely forgot about, you know? Sort of like the ongoing story of Donald Trump's many court cases and him having to pay $350 million.
Former President Donald Trump vowing to appeal that $355 million court ruling against him. The judge's decision coming in Trump's civil fraud case in New York State. ABC's senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky is here now with more. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. This decision is not going to ruin Donald Trump, but it could dramatically diminish his financial resources and undercut his carefully honed image of a successful businessman.
Ah, yes, the extremely, the as of yet completely untouched legitimacy he holds as a careful businessman. You know, the more money troubles he has, the less likely it is that he's going to be able to keep himself propped up in the face of all of these legal challenges. Yeah, you need money. You need money.
That carry them all the way to the White House. This morning, Donald Trump owes a staggering penalty after a judge in New York found him liable for frauds that he said leap off the page and shock the conscience.
Isn't this because he like overestimated the value of his real estate holdings in New York massively? Like it was very obvious and on the books where in some cases there are different written records of him estimating it to different amounts, and he was obviously lying for tax purposes.
Judge Arthur Ngoran ordered Trump to pay $355 million plus interest and barred him from serving in the top role of any New York company, including his own, for 3 years. Trump verbally attacked the judge.
Right. Underestimate for taxes, overestimated it for loans. Yeah, the classic.
And said he would appeal.
A New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you can get.
I love standing like a normal person, by the way. That's one of my favorite things to do, and it makes me really happy to see that Donald Trump shares my interest in that specific, in that field.
And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount.
The judge said a significant penalty was warranted. Otherwise, Trump, his eldest sons, and his company are likely to continue their fraudulent ways.
Because there cannot be different rules for different people in this country, and former presidents are no exception.
The judge
That's
found
so
Trump
true.
and his company repeatedly issued false financial statements that inflated his net worth by as much as $2 billion.
Here, hold on. I want to see that full video.
State judge just ruled.
Also, this tie is quite long, I have to say.
And he's crooked as you can get. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything.
Great cash! Great. We had the best cash. Other businesses, the cash they use, it wasn't very good. It was all wrinkled. Our cash, crisp.
It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it. Letitia James, they've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. All comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes
Sorry, 9/11 is happening in the background. Pay no attention.
of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here. So I just want to say,
Millions and millions of ice cream scoops. Yeah. Fuck, I love him. God, oh man. When he kicks it from like an aneurysm or whatever, it is going to be like an unprecedented loss in the field of American economy. Nobody can deny that Donald Trump is the most American imaginable. Like nobody tops this in terms of repping our nation, this particular flavor of comedy. It's going to be a real loss.
say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New.
Yeah, you can't fault them for staying on message. Democrats could really learn from this. You know, it's really, it's aspirational. You know, you look at him and you think, man, this is what it's about, you know? That thing Trump does with his hands is stimming. Trump's autistic explains, no, he's a New Yorker. It's just like the innately Italian energy that emanates from his hometown. Not an autism thing.
New York, I paid over this period of years over $300 million in tax.
Hey.
And they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics. And it's election interfering. So I just want to thank you for being here. We'll appeal. We'll be successful, I think, because, frankly, if we're not successful, New York State is gone. People are moving out of New York State. And because of this, they're going to move out at a much faster rate. They used a statute. It's a consumer fraud statute that's never been used for a thing like this before. They used it on me because I'm running for president. I'm beating Biden by a lot. We're beating not only the Republicans, we're beating Biden by...
How the f*** can anyone take any of this or the similar shit GOP spew seriously? Well, this is one of the reasons why I think every Democrat needs to be like bolted to a chair and made to watch a bunch of videos of Trump speaking, and they need to be told while watching it that, like, listen, 35% of the country thinks this is amazing. Now you need to sit here until you understand why. You know, like, obviously from our perspective, you know, this is incredibly stupid, but you need to understand, like, why this is appealing to a lot of people. And in a lot of cases, you know, it's just because they like Trump, so there's a bias that will lead them to agree with anything he does or says. But for a lot of it, it's also like a lot of people in this country have a deep-seated resentment of power. They don't like judges, they don't like district attorneys, they don't like politicians, they don't like the system. They think the system is crooked and corrupt for reasons that vary from legitimate populist fervor to like weird JQ one world government nonsense. And this is the benefit of being a populist. Leaving aside the fact that he's openly lying here, distrust of people in power who are, let's be clear here, deserving of distrust. That is valid. Like, innately, power should be met with distrust. Like, being a populist, or at least signaling that you're one, and sort of cultivating that distrust, it wins you a lot of favor by default. This is one of the reasons why liberals, despite being correct in way more ways, and promoting policies that more Americans like, don't have the support to back it up. Because liberalism fundamentally is about trusting the system. That's the message of the Democrats. The system works, we work, trust us, you know. Donald Trump, of course, is also saying to trust him, but he pretends to be some kind of like outsider maverick. And that aesthetic distinction is what, you know, sells the appeal, really. It's one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders is accepted pretty much universally to be an outsider and, like, not a part of the establishment, even though dude's been in politics for like 50 years, you know? Now, I trust Bernie Sanders for the most part. He seems like an upstanding guy. But a lot of it is also just, you know, looking at him and how he presents himself and thinking like, yeah, maybe he's in the system, but he's not part of the system. And Donald Trump sells himself as being that. So if you already believe that, all of these court cases against Donald Trump comes across, they all come across as like a, you know, like the deep state trying to take him down, basically. I think Dems need to be a bit more entertaining. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like literally, yes. They need to be better showmen, 100%. That is politics. That is literally politics.
A lot. The poll came out today, we're up 20 points on Biden. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. None of these lawsuits would have ever happened. Nothing would, I would have had a nice life. but I enjoy this life for a different reason. We're going to make America great again.
If Lyndon Baines Johnson came forward and was suddenly the 2024 Democratic presidential candidate, he would do 50-state sweep. LBJ, 50-state sweep, 51 states, everything. He'd get everything. Return. LBJ sweep.
These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot in the polls and always will be, because I'm competing with a man who can't put two sentences together, who doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, there's no denying that Donald Trump can string together sentences better than Biden can. Sorry. Democrats don't want you to talk about this because it's a really inconvenient and embarrassing objective fact, but you kind of have to acknowledge it.
And we're heading into a third world war because of this guy. We have to win this election. They're doing everything possible to step in our way, but we're not going to stand for it. So thank you very much. We will get back to work. It's a ridiculous award. Listen, a fine of $355 million for doing a perfect job, for having paid back a loan with no default.
There's the second plane.
The banks were totally, at the trial they testified. We had an expert witness from the Stern School at NYU that made a statement, and I was very honored by his statement. He's one of the most respected people anywhere in the for doing this kind of thing, expert wisdom. He said, this is one of the greatest financial statements I have ever witnessed before. And he talked about even the detail. So
Didn't Donald Trump after 9/11 brag that he now owned one of the tallest buildings in New York City because the two towers collapsed? And he was like, there was a TV interview and he was like, he was so real for that. On 9/11, Trump bragged he now had the tallest building in Manhattan. 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan, Mr. Trump said erroneously on 9/11. Now it's the tallest. This was on 9/11, like on the day. He called into the TV station WWOR to talk about the day's tragic events. He called into a TV station to brag the day of. Incredible. He really is the American. Truly the most American of all time. You really couldn't make him up if you tried to? No, you could. Genuinely, any fictional media that attempted to construct him would be written off as being too much. It's too silly. It would have to be like a comedy thing. He's incredible. He's a remarkable person. He is truly a titan of American culture. Yeah, SDL. The difference between, so you like choose your fighter, right? Trump is infinitely better than Biden at stringing together sentences, making points, delivering statements, whatever. But the statements he delivers are incoherent and wrong. Whereas Biden, it sounds like he's dying every time he opens his mouth and can barely say anything. But he gaffes often. But for the most part, when he says stuff, the stuff he says is sensible and coherent. Again, he gaffes often, but Donald Trump is just gaffes. It's a choose your fighter.
Numbers actually were extremely conservative. They saw this, so what the judge did is he brought down certain values like Mar-a-Lago, made it ridiculous, but the expert, after having all of this, testified it's one of the best financial statements he's ever seen.
Is it impossible to have a Democrat be a charismatic voice for the system, or are they just apathetic? It's Clinton's fault. The Clinton administration made the Democrats extremely arrogant, and a lot of the people in power in the Democratic organization are still like holdovers from the Clinton years. In the Clinton years where they basically, Clinton's job as a Democrat was to look Republicans in the eye and say, listen, I'm not going to fight you on economic issues anymore. Like hand in hand, we are both going to pursue, we are both doing the neoliberalism bit. Okay. You won with Reagan. The Cold War is over. We are shifting the economy to the right. Yeah, he's like Blair in a lot of ways. And the Democrats kind of molded into that. it's not innate, you know. I mean, I made the LBJ joke earlier, but like genuinely, there's nothing about like the Democrats as a party that prevents them from being charismatic or whatever. Like, yeah, Obama was charismatic, but Obama was still infected by the logic of the Clinton years. He makes incoherent points, pragmasochist, but they sell with his audience, which is what matters politically. Like, Obama was insanely charismatic, but he was still a hardline, like, institutionalist technocrat. Very, very much an elitist. Funny that Obama would come across as an elitist, because Donald Trump is a New York billionaire born into money, and Obama is, well, you know, like, obviously, like, his background is much more middle class, but Obama also is insanely smart and very well spoken, and the way he comes across is extremely more academic than coastal elite, right? Yeah, Obama was a scholar of constitutional law. He always spoke like an academic, which comes across as elitist for obvious reasons. Bill Clinton was, a coastal elite, but he never spoke like an elitist. He always did that folksy, like, down-home accent bullshit. It was totally fake, of course, but, you know, whatever. Intelligence comes off as elitist, Vaush. It's such a problem. Well, there are two big issues here with Obama specifically. For one, Obama wasn't just intelligent and charismatic. He also was legitimately like a stiff upper lip, like, technocrat kind of guy, you know? Not a populist, not even remotely. And second of all, racism. If Obama had been a little bit more, I guess, loose with his language, people would have called him a thug. Simple as. Like, dude was the most coherent and well-spoken president of our, in living memory, and he was still being nonstop bombarded with racism. So it's like, unfortunately, yeah. How much would Obama have won by if he was white? He did get a lot of energy from the left for being the first black president. I'm sure being white would have helped him in some ways. In some small ways, I think being black gave him some cultural weight. I think the real difference, though, is that if he was white, he wouldn't have talked that way. If he was white, he would have done the Clinton bit. He would have downplayed his academic credentials, his background, his intelligence, his charisma. He would have tried to come across a little bit more folksy. Not necessarily populist, but that's just a guess. I don't know. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Yeah, exactly, Annie. Same with George W. Bush, right? I disagree. 2008 Obama was 100% a populist. Well, he was a liar, right? Like, he did the whole hope and change bit, but like in office for 2 terms. Like, he ran like a populist, but the moment he was in office, like, it wasn't legitimate. It was all rhetoric, It was just rhetoric. But anyway, we're getting off topic here.
And I was honored by that. But I also knew we have a corrupt judge. He's not a respected man. And again, I said before, he's been overturned on this case by the appellate division 4 times already. It's a record. Nobody's ever been overturned on one case 4 times. And I think very importantly, and I think ultimately the most important, we've employed tens of thousands of people in New York, and we paid taxes like few other people have ever paid in New York, and they don't care about that. It's a state that's going bust. It's a state that's going bust because everybody's leaving, and it's all headed up by Biden, who's destroying our country.
True.
So.
What about the humor quotient of past presidential candidates? Well, Bush Sr. was incredibly unfunny. Reagan was funny. Carter was not very funny. LBJ was hilarious. JFK was wasn't really that he was funny, right? It was more like he's funny to talk about, but I don't know how much of that came across in Nixon was funny. Nixon was extremely funny. Sorry, I keep getting distracted.
This is Russia, this is China, this is what you've been reading about all your lives, and it's happening right here in our country. Thank you very much. We will stop it. We will make America great again. You have my word. Thank you very much.
President Trump,
I don't know anything about Ford.
and that is the lack of remorse that Judge...
Lack of remorse. When has Donald Trump ever demonstrated remorse? When has he ever experienced that feeling in his entire life? When has that ever happened? As of yesterday, Donald Trump has asked for a delay in the enforcement of this third of $1 billion fine. And I think the reason for that is because they're not around. He is already being charged interest. Until he pays the fine, $87,000 in interest per day, which it seems unless he gets the suspension or the delay, it begins accumulating immediately. Now, 87,000 a day isn't that much in the face of the third of $1 billion, obviously, but the fact that the interest is accruing immediately, I think, means there a more like definitive settlement on the fine, if that makes any sense. We'll see how it builds up. I doubt he doesn't have the money. He doesn't have $1/3 billion. He doesn't have that much money. Yeah, how much could he have made in total from the Trump shoes? Yeah, the brilliant Trump shoes was 1 day after the goddamn decision. Not to say he planned this all in 1 day and had the shoes made or whatever. Just very funny that it lined up like that. Got it. Listen, every dollar counts, okay? It was 2,000 pairs of $400 shoes. So if we ignore economics and like don't account for 2,000, was it 1,000? Was it only 1,000 of them? Just 1,000. Okay, 1,000 times 400 is 400,000. So he's paid. So if all of these sell and we ignore economics and cost of production and other people taking cuts, he's paid off like 4 days of interest. Nice. Did you see that red bottom shoe could get him in another lawsuit? No way. No way. Trump's sneakers red soles risk Louboutin. Louboutin? Trademark infringement? I don't know this brand. Red bottom sneakers endanger the trademark protection of its iconic red soles. Wait, you can trademark having the soles of your shoes be red? Fuck off. Okay, I don't support this lawsuit. Fuck that. There are sometimes some types of lawsuits are bullshit. It's like in the video game industry where it's like, yeah, we've actually trademarked this type of system so no one else can incorporate it. Like, no, f off. Yeah, I'm fairly sure it's the shade of red. Yeah, I just don't like the idea of a corporation being able to trademark a specific wavelength of light on the bottom of shoes. I don't know. I like logos, brands, specific like artistic things I can understand, but like a color on the bottom of the shoe, I like you have like the bottom of the shoe and you're like scrolling through a hue wheel or something and you accidentally flag the copyright as you move through the red. I don't know. Legal doesn't think it's going to be a thing and it's just speculation. Okay, yeah. It'd be a stupid lawsuit to go after. Critical support for Donald J. Trump draining all the GOP's money. Hey, you need money to run. They'll seize what money he has if he doesn't pay. I doubt they would go forward and seize his money or assets before the election. Stuff like that tends to take a while. How detrimental would it be to his candidacy if he were to file for bankruptcy? I don't think he could file for bankruptcy for this fine. Bankruptcy doesn't get you out of everything. For example, Alex Jones can't bankruptcy his way out of his current gigantic, like $1.5 billion fine. You can't get out of settlements through bankruptcy. I'm sure there are specific instances, like I'm sure it's complicated, but my understanding is that this stuff is sticking with him. New York Attorney General is already trying to seize Trump buildings if he doesn't pay. No kidding. From today, Donald Trump could be at risk of losing some of his prized properties if he can't pay a staggering New York civil fraud penalty. With interest, he owes the state nearly $454 million. Cool. New York Attorney General Letitia James told ABC News on Tuesday she will seek to see some of the... Okay, Letitia James better be sleeping in like a fucking bunker. Like she had better be paying for protection. She is a black woman who has been incredibly militant in going after Donald Trump. Like, holy shit. There have got to be people who are sizing her up, right? Yeah, stay safe, Queen. Trump could just not pay and he sells all his assets to Barron for a nickel. No, you can't do that. You can get out of a lot of shit as a wealthy, like, you know, piece of shit, but there are limits and it's not that easy to circumvent the process. The interest already ran since the pre-judgment last year. Oh, okay, gotcha. That's why it's higher than the initial. Okay, so it's been accumulating for a while. Since the pre-judgment, yikes. And the defamation of Jean Carroll. But don't expect James to try to grab the keys to Trump Tower or Mar-a-Lago immediately. Trump's promised appeal is likely to halt collection of his penalty while the process plays out. What if they don't accept his appeal? We'll see. How will the appeal affect Trump's penalty? It's unlikely he'll have to pay or face the prospect of having some of his assets seized for a while. If he wins, he might not have to pay anything. Wins the appeal, of course. Trump can't appeal yet. Must file paperwork to make the verdict official. Okay. Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. It's not bad news. It's always taxes that gets these guys in the end. Yeah, because it's all very empirical, you know? And records are kept. On what grounds is he appealing? You can appeal anything.